What is your YouTube channel?
It's just my name, Kyron
Cool.
Kukala, and I just keep track of, as you know, like the Matt Boudreaux program. I'm in that. I keep track of my interviews with other people. I keep track of the projects and challenges that we do on there,
Great.
but
That's awesome.
that's about all.
That's really awesome, man.
You want to dive right in?
Whenever you're ready, I am on your time. About how long should I expect?
This interview should be about half an hour long. Sometimes we go a
Perfect.
little bit over, but
Perfect.
is that
All
all
good.
right? Is that all good for you?
That's fine for me. Yep.
Okay. So, what skills have helped you in becoming the man you are today?
Oh man. What skills? Let's see. I would say the man I am today is very different than the man I was. I would say even 10 years ago and even 20 years ago. But to answer your question specifically, the man I am today, I would say one of the most important things that I have learned is to have a conviction greater than my complacency. Um, it is and you guys know, right? You guys are in the Apogee program. You guys understand that there is a very calculated assault on men. There's a calculated
Yep.
assault on humanity, and it is going to take warriors to step into that fray. And every time I get to speak with one of you guys, it just really inspires me and makes me really wish that I was a teenager again, and I can go back and not have to reflect back and say the man I was 20 years ago is very different than the man I am today. And so I would say if there's one thing, it's the level of conviction, because there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of hesitation, there's a lot of loss of hope, and in the end, um, it's not that we don't feel fear, and it's not that we don't have hesitation. It's that in that moment, we choose conviction over complacency.
It's a very, very important skill to have because a lot of people are complacent now and
A
just
lot
do
of
whatever they're told.
it's completely normal to be complacent. It's completely, I take that back. It's completely common to be complacent, but I would say that it is an extraordinarily privileged time in humanity to have that normalized, to have complacency and compliance normalized for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But the next question is, what would you want to see a young person who wanted to work for you?
Um, you know, I would say if there's one book that I wish, actually, that is a required reading in my business, and virtually I would recommend to everybody on the planet. It's called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's written by a man named Stephen Covey. It was published, I believe, in the 70s, the late 70s. And it's really interesting because there's a lot of people in the world today who are, influencers and leaders, and they have platforms and they have millions and millions of followers. And you start to hear these very specific ways that they empower people and inspire people, which is all amazing and it's beautiful. But for me, I found that they all have roots in this perspective that was, I mean, if you really do the math, it's like 50 years ago, right? And so those seven habits, I actually get to train my team on a week from today, literally a week from this interview. Habit number one is be proactive. Habit number two is put first things first. Habit number three is to begin with the end in mind. Habit number four is to think win win. Habit number five is to seek first to understand rather than to be understood. Habit six is synergy. And habit seven is sharpen the saw. And I have read this book at least a dozen times, and everything that I learned that's new always reminds me to go back to that. And I read that maybe in one of the first few years at West Point when I was a cadet, and I never forgot it, and I continue to come back. Yeah.
So I believe my dad has that book, but
Cool.
my I have three little sisters and they love there's a kids version of that book with short stories describing how to put those into action.
Yep.
And those are great. Those are great stories too.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Those those habits are definitely very important for life and work in general. what separates you from other men?
That's a tough question, because it's like I feel like you're asking it because maybe I appear as a leader and influencer to some degree. Um, that's how I view Matt, and that's how I view Apogee. But I also know that there's a lot of men that I'm separated from who are definitely the tip of the spear. Who are the beacons out there that are definitely leading the way. I would say if there's something unique about me is the lens that I look through. I'm a prenatal and pediatric chiropractor. I've been in practice 13 years. The foundation to my work has mostly been education and informed consent. Informed consent being what was codified after World War II with the Nuremberg Code, and making sure that we don't test medical procedures and medical products on humanity like we have over the last 3 years, and much more. And we do that specifically around pregnancy, um, postpartum for the moms out there, and for kids. And so the majority of my work, which is interesting, has been focused on communicating with moms knee to knee in my practice. 89% of households, um, the decision maker with healthcare is moms. And so I have a unique lens in a sense that I have always had that focus, right? I have zero attachment to the choices that the families make in my practice, but I have a lot of skin in the game when it comes to empowering and educating and making sure that people are making the most informed choice. And so I would say in general, that's one thing that would separate me from a lot of men out there who are kind of in this movement, in a sense that I have almost had a completely different audience that has been dominated by mothers.
Um, I like that though, making sure they know everything so they can make the best decision in their power.
Do
That's
you,
how.
do you know what informed consent is?
Um, I believe I've heard the term before, but
Mhm.
no.
So, informed consent is basically saying that you have all the information to consent to a procedure or a
Yeah,
product, right? If you go to a healthcare office, there are some intake forms. Your mom will fill
yeah,
out all the things about you. Sometimes
yeah,
dads do today, especially Apogee dads. Um, and there's other forms that you sign that say, "Hey, this is a release of, liability." And then there's another form that says, "Hey, this is an informed consent, saying you consent to the work that we're doing." Right?
yeah,
Every healthcare provider is bound by the oath, which is called the Hippocratic Oath, which is the first do no harm.
yeah,
And informed consent is essentially, if you break it down and if you look at the like textbook definition of it, it's what are the benefits of the thing that you're thinking about doing? What are the risks of the thing that you're doing? What are the alternatives of the things that you're doing? And what if you did nothing? What if you chose to do nothing at all, right?
yeah,
And conventional medicine has largely altered that to like take these pills forever, take these shots. Don't ask me any questions, or else I'm going to kind of coerce and shame you, especially the COVID one. And if you don't wear a mask, you're totally in trouble too, right? But there's another caveat to that I believe Apogee men and your crew of amazing teens should know also, is that there is a very unpopular, unknown perspective called uninformed dissent, which you have the freedom as a free human being focused on sovereignty to say no without any information. You have 100% ability to say no, especially for your kids, especially for your friends, to stand up for your rights to say no at any moment's notice, because tyranny is typically always around the corner.
yeah.
I
That's
hope that
that's a
wasn't
good
too much
description.
information for you.
No, most of that stuff my parents talk about a lot with
Cool.
me,
I love it.
and yeah. But so you served in the military, correct?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Um, what made you want to start?
Uh, honestly, I would say the most how do you say this? The most mature answer that I have is that I was one of the most. My grandfather was one of my favorite people in the world. He was a World War II vet. He came over in his late teens. How old are you?
I am 13.
So you're 13. My grandfather was 4 years older than you when he emigrated from China in the 1940s with his dad, his older brother, his future brother-in-law, who was about your age, and his future father-in-law. He wasn't married yet, and he knew really nothing, didn't know any English, didn't know anything about America besides the land of opportunity
Yeah,
and the fact that he was fleeing the totalitarian regime of Red China back then. And he signed up for World War II. He may or may not have faked his identity to do so, to serve the Allied forces in America. And he and I are the only two in my family that ever served in the military. And so he was always one of my favorite relatives. I always looked up to him. To the day he died, he would give me all sorts of magazines that would remind me of, you know, my privilege to be an American citizen. And that was one of the biggest inspirations for me to go in the military.
yeah, I respect that. I respect that. Um, so what was your training like?
Which one? My basic training, like when I first went to West Point,
Yeah,
or
yes.
yeah. Imagine yourself 4 years from now, 2 weeks after high school graduation. Um, I was about to play in the main draw of the Southern California Tennis Association sectionals. This is going to be the best year that I ever ranked, which was, you know, somewhere to the order of top 30 to top 50 in Southern California. And I actually was low crawling through the mud in West Point, New York, doing basic training. And so I was 17 and I was very green. I didn't really know anything about what I was getting into as much as I was inspired by my grandpa. I didn't do much research about West Point. And so I found myself getting hazed by 18-year-olds and learning what standing at attention was like, learning what my four responses were, which the four responses at West Point are yes, sir, no excuse, sir, I do not understand. And there are no other answers that you can give when somebody or when your cadre gives you any question. And then from basic rifle marksmanship to ground force infantry training to NBC, which is nuclear, biological, chemical, mop gear, and gas chambers. You name it, I did it. And 8 weeks later, I was I guess I would be then a fourth class cadet at West Point, a plebe at West Point. So you go through that training and all that hazing, and then you end up getting a whole another year of hazing in your first year of college. So yeah, it's great.
I've talked to a couple other veterans too, and it's like you do everything, you learn everything, and a lot of training.
You learn everything. You learn laundry. You learn folding clothes. You learn gosh, I can't even remember what everything's called anymore. How to shine brass, like how to break down brass, like because it comes rather opaque, and
Yeah,
you have to shine it so much that it eventually is like chrome.
yeah,
And it's a gnarly experience, man. You learn how to shine boots, you learn how to do parades, you learn how to do a whole host of things that are, you know, virtually replicating what you might do in combat and replicating what you would do in what they call garrison. And so yeah, very
yeah.
different experience than most 17-year-olds for sure.
How long did you serve in the military?
I did my 4 years at West Point, and I did my 5 years. I did my 5 years of owed service, and then at the end of that, I actually had a little bit of a hesitation getting out because I would say even to this day, which is now 20 years, no, 21 years ago. No, sorry, 23 years ago, I graduated. I graduated in 2000. I still miss it. I still miss the people. I still miss the loyalty. I still miss the brotherhood. But that's also why I'm in Apogee for sure.
Apogee's good if you want brotherhood and other
Totally.
people. Um, what was your least favorite part about serving in the military?
I think the least favorite part, and this is not, um, you don't know this yet, right? You're still a little young for this, but when you get your driver's license, you will eventually at some point go to the DMV, which is the Department of Motor Vehicles, right? And you will learn what a governmental organization looks like, right? And when you go to West Point's a little different. It's 1,000 cadets. It's not that many, right? We start with about 1,300. We lose about 30%, and then we end and graduate with about 1,000. I think we graduate with about 950. And the weeding out of people is a part of the attrition that says like you are actually bred to be, that next generation of top military leader, which is not easy. And I would be lying to you if I said that my academics were perfect, my military scores were perfect, and I would say if there's anything I excelled at was my physical training. Um, but when I got to the military, I would say what was difficult was that we went from a small group of, some would say, elite, although I would never compare ourselves to the SEALs. I would never compare ourselves to the special ops. But when you go into the general military, it's like you go into this massive organization. And on some days, not every day, because many of the days you're just like, oh my gosh, like when I was in Iraq, I would say I went with some of the best soldiers in the world. But sometimes you're like, am I in the DMV? Like, this is a little weird. How'd this guy get in the military? It's funny how you're not clear on the high standards that you had lived, by for a while. And
Yeah.
then that oftentimes is a little bit frustrating because when you're a young officer and you have embodied excellence, or at least did the best that you could, and are held to that standard, and the young officers tend to promote at the same time. Like all you have to do is stay in. And sometimes that means if you don't stay in, like you're getting kicked out for like a DUI, for fraternization, for sexual harassment, like really, really bad things, So if you don't do those things, you will stay in and you will promote with a lot of the junior officers. And that is one of the hardest things because what ends up being normalized is what we've talked about at the very beginning, the complacency, right? The mediocrity oftentimes becomes the standard, right?
I don't know, but the DMV around here is pretty bad. I've heard from my
Oh,
dad.
see, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, man, it's well known across the
Yeah.
United States, man. Don't go work there in case, if anybody in Apogee tries to tell you to go work at the DMV, they're probably not an Apogee man. No, I'm just joking,
Yeah.
man. If there are any Apogee men out there that are DMV workers, I apologize. I'm joking, man. I'm joking.
But you mentioned that you're a chiropractor. What made you want to become one?
So this is a good question. This is an ode to the people who inspired me when I was younger. When I was younger, right? When I got in the military, I was 26. It was 2005, and at that stage of my life, I had chronic health problems. I had chronic gut issues. I had chronic pain, chronic stress. I had at the time some levels of PTSD that still affects me today. And I found that uh, when I was out processing from the military, that they send you through all of your medical checks. And at that time, you learn to just get the heck out of there, right? You may not fill out every form as perfectly as you should, and you don't necessarily trust the military medics. You definitely have gotten the same prescription for virtually everything, which they call vitamin M for Motrin. They give 800 milligram Motrin for virtually everything that you might experience in the military. And you start to just not trust your military medical system. So I said, I'm out. And I got in my 2001 Nissan Pathfinder. I drove with one of my best friends in the world uh, from Fort Hood, Texas, all the way back to Southern California, which is where I live today. And I got out of my truck, and my brother looked at me, who was a chiropractor. He was in his third year of practice, and he said, "You look like hell. Um, how can I help you?" And I just listened to him. Right, I listened to him, and he at the time was very, very, very motivated, very inspired. And so he basically took everything that I did and said, I'm going to audit your entire lifestyle. I'm going to give you an idea of what is a more optimal lifestyle to start the process of learning about. And in 6 weeks, I felt about the same, right? I was getting adjusted too. In 6 months, my brother did an evaluation on me, and he told me that I was one of the healthiest patients in his office. And I had essentially unwound a lot of the chronic health issues that I was experiencing. And in the end, it was kind of inarguable for me that that could be a path. I was pre-med at West Point, and I did do a internship at Walter Reed, and I've scrubbed in to surgery, and I've been in open heart surgery, I've been in orthopedic surgery, I've been in brain surgery, and I left my internship, which was a 12-week internship, and was convinced I would never be a medical doctor because I just didn't love it was procedure based, it wasn't people based, it was not very empathetic, and I
Mm.
didn't ever really see a patient interaction that was human to human. It was mostly technician to procedure, and I was really really inspired because my brother was brand new. He was literally starting his practice, and all I did was what he told me to do that I thought was a good fit for my lifestyle, and I just watched my health just return in a really big way. And so, just as a framework, I was 26, and in 6 months, I felt like I was 17 again, but I was 100% also convinced that I would never go back through basic training. FYI.
Yeah, I mean, basic training, it doesn't sound very fun, but would you recommend going to a chiropractor?
Would I recommend going to a chiropractor?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll ask you a question. Um, this is highly intellectual. I'm not sure if you're going to get this, Karen. You know, like this is really, 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 really intellectually advanced.
Okay.
I'm joking. Do you brush your teeth?
Yes. Brush my
Um,
teeth.
do you go to the dentist?
Yes, I go to the dentist.
Do you do your spinal hygiene exercises?
No. No.
What is more important, your spine or your teeth?
Your spine,
Why?
because it holds up your entire body. Like with that,
Holds your
if
entire
you,
body, right?
yeah,
What does the spine have inside of it?
um, bones. I don't know.
So the bone, but inside the bone, is there anything inside the bone?
I know there's like cushions in between the bones,
Yeah,
but
there's discs, right? There's intervertebral discs, but inside the
yeah.
spinal canal is your spinal cord, right?
Oh yes, yes,
And
the
inside
spinal cord.
your spinal cord, and your brain are the only system in all of nature that is completely encapsulated by bone. The role of the spine is your upright posture. You are a human. You're not a snake, right? Although snakes have spines. You
Yeah.
have this upright posture because of your spine, but you also have protection over the one thing that connects your brain body and self regulates virtually every function of your body. So, do you know what your nervous system is?
Um, I've heard the term used a lot, but I'm not 100% sure.
So, I would argue that everything that you're learning in Apogee is doing the very best you can to attune your nervous system towards courage, towards conviction, towards being an Apogee man. And I would say and argue and could back this up with a full on thesis that the structure and function of your spine and your nervous system is 1000% related to that. Right. And so, with that said, most people don't put those two words together. They don't put spinal hygiene together, although they know that their spine is largely more important than their teeth. And so I would say if you are a spine and you are alive and you live in gravity, you probably need a chiropractor. If you're a kid, today, you absolutely have an amazing opportunity to live in the world of prevention. Like most of us adults, especially those of us who've been through the military, have had TBIs and concussions and head injuries. If you get a lateral x-ray of your neck, you will likely, it is shocking to me as a provider, right, to see an adult and the lateral x-ray free of arthritis, scar tissue, osteophyte formation, early stage aging. And whenever I see one that's actually perfect, I'm like, who's your chiropractor? And they'll always tell me. They'll always tell me who their chiropractor is because they've invested in their spinal hygiene. And so I would say because of the importance of your spine and because of the primacy of your nervous system as it relates to whole system health, that one of the most important doctors to have is a really, really great chiropractor. It's a long-winded answer. I think you were looking for yes or no. I'm just kidding.
No, that's a great answer. That's a great answer.
I'm picking on you, man.
But so, are you all good on time? I have two more questions that I'd
Yeah,
like to ask
I
you.
am. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, like helping your spine out, but what are the benefits of going to a chiropractor?
So, wow, the benefits of going to the chiropractor. This takes me to my workshops, right? I teach workshops almost every month in our community, mostly about kids, sometimes about adults, sometimes about mental health, sometimes about pregnancy. And one of my favorite slides is like the last slide. And it's a study that was published. It's called a systematic review, which is one of the highest, coveted structures of any sort of science. And its title is like, what are the unforeseen benefits of going to the chiropractor, right? Because most people go to the chiropractor like, oh, fix my back and fix my neck. I got a headache. I was in a car accident. Like, to us as chiropractors who actually understand the nervous system, we say, and this is not really, you may not get this joke because you're 13 and you probably don't drink coffee and you probably don't really go to the gas station yet, right? Like, but it's like going to the gas station for a cup of coffee, right? It's like, it's a thing that you get there, but it's not the real reason for that, right? And what's listed on this last slide are all the unforeseen benefits. And the unforeseen benefits are that you have better immune resiliency, that you have better mental clarity, that you actually improve your sleep. Some people have better hormone regulation. Some people recognize that they start to just have better respiration. Some people's digestion improves. Some people recognize that they're like, wait a minute, I've always kind of stood kind of cockeyed, right? Like I have horrible posture, and then they start to actually stand better. And there's all these unforeseen benefits that are actually what we call the real effects and benefits of chiropractic. And pain relief is actually a side effect of having better functioning systems of your body. So think about all the systems that you don't have to consciously control. Like we have a family that is riddled with mold exposure, and they have, as a side effect of that, significant cardiovascular issues. And this is from toddler age all the way up to mom and dad, that they're all having cardiovascular issues. And since they've been coming to my practice, which is over the last 6 months or so, all of their cardiovascular issues are gone. And most people would be like, are you treating like cardiovascular like problems with chiropractic? I'm like, no, we're just adjusting the spine, and we're focusing on optimizing the self-regulation and self-healing of the nervous system, and the body is deciding to self-regulate the heart better. And that kind of, like, most medical doctors don't like that explanation, but that's what we do. right?
That's a lot of benefits to
It's
going to a
it's
chiropractor.
it's it's so much so, and I'm not trying to toot our horns, but I'm extraordinarily biased when I say this. But we have T-shirts. I'm not wearing one right now, but we have T-shirts that say "Expect Miracles," and we say T-shirts that say "Expect Miracles" because there is no greater miracle than the miracle of your own body. And if you have a doctor that believes that you and your system is that miraculous, and we can inspire our patients to believe that and to invest in that on a day-to-day basis, then they can expect that every day too.
Man, man, good stuff here.
Thank you, man.
But I play sports a lot. Will going to a chiropractor improve your ability to play sports? This is very specific.
So what sport do you play?
I play basketball and I play baseball.
Okay.
Basketball practice tonight, in fact.
So I believe that, well, I'll say it this way. Every NFL team has a chiropractor. And every NFL team has a chiropractor, and it's so infrastructurally important in the NFL that they have an NFL Chiropractic Association where all the chiropractors collaborate and communicate. Every Olympic athlete that goes to the Olympics representing America, but mostly every country in the world now that has chiropractors in them has a team chiropractor. At the majority of time that I was in chiropractic school, the school that I went to had our graduates as the team, not the team, but the Olympic Association, like medical, like directors, many of them were actually chiropractors. And so if you think about what chiropractic is, um, and if you understand that whether you play basketball or you play baseball, that the foundational ability to perform at any sport is based upon a sense. And the sense, some people in fitness and some people in mobility and healthcare will call it something called proprioception. Have you heard that word before?
I don't think so.
So proprioception is the body's awareness in relationship to the environment, and and then the nervous system's awareness of the environment in relationship to the body. And when you improve brain body connection and you improve what we call proprioception of the body, it means that you improve your body awareness. When you improve your body awareness and you're playing a sport, and say you're doing something as simple as shooting a free throw, understanding your form, understanding your joint positions, understanding the weight of the ball, understanding whether you're playing indoors or outdoors, and understanding whether or not there's weather. All those different factors are sensations that your nervous system has to perceive at a split second, fraction of a second moment that you don't even consciously control. And when your nervous system is functioning and way more attuned, that's usually when we see, like we've had in our practice, we've had patients tell us that they have better batting averages over the time of their chiropractic care. We have patients that tell us on the opposite end that old injuries healed and that they didn't feel vulnerable. They felt more confident and comfortable with their body, that they didn't have to feel like they were going to re-injure themselves because they had better body awareness. And so whether it's on a performance side or if it's on an injury prevention side, largely chiropractic is hugely beneficial, to the point that most professional athletes have a chiropractor that has some sort of influence on their not only their health but their performance. When I was in school, and this isn't to say that this guy is the beacon of all the ethics, right? in the long run, but
Yeah,
one of the most sought after speakers at my school was a guy named Jeff Spencer. Jeff Spencer at the time was the team um, chiropractor for Lance Armstrong, one of the winningest cyclists in the world ever known. Right? If you ever see those
yeah,
Live Strong yellow bracelets, that's Lance Armstrong. And
yeah,
I remember him speaking when I was in school. He was speaking about this thing called grounding. Have you heard grounding before?
yeah. I believe
Yeah.
so. It's where, yeah.
What do you do? What's grounding?
Um, so I don't know. This is the way my mom does it, but it's
Yeah.
just like going outside barefoot, just
Totally. Right.
calming down,
Barefoot on the earth,
just
right?
yeah,
And Lance Armstrong's team, Jeff Spencer, was one of the first to. This is when I was in school, so like almost like 15 years ago. He was promoting this thing called grounding and earthing, that was about drawing from the earth the unlimited free energy and the passing of electrons to drive physiological functions of your body, but to restore and regenerate your body. And this is now, if you look at every fitness influencer and biohacker today, they all talk about these concepts of grounding. They have PEMF mats. They have all sorts of things that allow for that. They have grounding blankets, and everybody's essentially talking about the essential nature of that. And chiropractors have largely been at the forefront of a lot of those conversations for a lot of years. And so I would say that if you're an athlete, it is one of the best reasons to consistently have your nervous system checked and adjusted for optimal health.
I have a basketball game tomorrow. Maybe I should go outside and walk barefoot in the snow before
I would venture to guess the snow,
the
that
snow.
adds an added concept, right? If you get in the snow, there's actually research that shows that if you put your face in cold water, it's similar to like an ice bath, right? And so you might just need to go outside. I don't know if you actually have to get your feet on the ice, but although if you do get your feet in the ice, water is often a conduit of that energy that's far superior than the earth also. So there's a frozen lake out back. You can go in there too.
Yeah.
Just kidding, man.
Unfortunately, no frozen lake out here. But that's a cool fact. I didn't realize that each NFL team had a chiropractor.
Yeah, you could look it up. Each NFL team has a chiropractor. And there's a time period when the Giants were super good. The Giants have a really famous chiropractor, like not the New York Giants, but the San Francisco Giants. That some of the
Yeah.
top. I don't think every baseball team currently has a chiropractor like the NFL teams do, but yeah, I think um, it's very much an infrastructure to a lot of professional sports now. Yeah.
So I could keep asking you questions all day, but unfortunately, I want to respect your time, and I also have run out of questions to ask you. So,
That's awesome.
well, one last one.
Of course.
Where can people who are watching find you?
So you can find me, uh, I would say primarily on Instagram. My handle is Dr. Stanton Hom, or through my podcast, thefuturegen.com, which is the Future Generations podcast. And if you are in San Diego, if you're local to San Diego, my practice is called the Future Generations Clinic of Chiropractic. It's in Escondido, Northeast County, San Diego. We are arguably one of the best clinics in the world. And so, either way,
Well, thank you so much for being on the call. Thank you for the great answers. Just, I really appreciate it, man.
Karen, I just want to say this because I said this when I was on um, the Brotherhood call with Matt and speaking to the young men. I'm humbled every time I get to witness just how deeply inspired, purpose driven, and powerful you guys are. It's one of those things that humbles me because when I was younger, I call it grab ass. You know, like I was playing a lot of grab ass when I was younger, and that kind of lasted till maybe like my 30s. Not really, but you know, it reminds me and inspires me because I have a son and he's almost 2. Right, he's almost your age, right? And I'm
Yeah.
starting him early. Like I was wrestling him in the bed today. You know, I was letting him know like you got to be an Apogee. Like you got to be an Apogee. You got to toughen up, right? No, I wasn't. But it's giving me a model of what that level of excellence and what that level of potential that resides in my kids. And I'm very, very honored to be here. And I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to share with you.
Well, I really appreciate you making it. I'll make sure to I'll send you this once I publish it on YouTube. Okay.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
well, I appreciate it.
You can bleep out my, I just realized that I cursed. I said
Yeah.
grab ass. Like you could bleep that out if you need to. Sorry if you have to put a disclaimer, and sorry if your parents get mad at me.
Yeah, I don't think they will. I don't think they will.
All right, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, brother.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you. Bye bye.